Thanks to the popularity of the X Games and expansion of Olympic events, sports that started out as daredevil pastimes are now becoming mainstream. For many athletes, it was a long road before recognition, competitive opportunities, and sponsorships helped to elevate their hobby into a career.
Well, when I started big wave surfing, there was not one woman in the world at the time that would get paid to perform in the big wave scene. It was like this distant niche in the sport that was still completely male dominated. And so when I went in, I was very young for the sport. I was 17, 18 when I went to Hawaii, and I started, feeling out that territory. And there were only men, and there were only opportunities for men. And then a year later, there was the first opportunity in professional big wave surfing for women, which was in the Big Wave Awards, something called the overall performance for a woman in big waves. And I thought, well, there's one thing I can win. Let's win that a few times. And that's when I got sponsored. When you're an amateur, they don't see you as a threat. When you turn professional, you start becoming a threat because you start getting media space, sponsorship space, and that's money that is being relocated.
How often were you discouraged from pursuing your dreams?
Oh yeah, all the time. I mean, I was discouraged by the environment all the time.
Good. Stand up. Yeah, good. Nice.
Generally, why do you think it's so difficult for most climbers to be able to earn a living from the sport?
I mean, generally climbing just isn't that big a sport, so there's not much money in it, so there's not that much to go around. I mean, it's hard to make a living from sponsorship. But gyms are taking off, and the sport of climbing is wildly different now than it was 10 years ago.
How did your life change when you started to get a lot of attention?
I view fame as like a means to an end, and the end is to be able to climb my whole life without having to work. Media and sponsors are all just part of the whole game. I mean, throughout my life, I've gotten a lot of inspiration from seeing climbing films and reading people's books and reading climbing magazines, and I've taken a lot from the climbing community, and that's really inspired me to go out and push myself. And so it's nice to be able to contribute to that whole culture a little bit.
How about the most satisfying singular win of your career?
I would definitely say the first Olympics for me, just because it meant so much. Not even just to me, but my family. I mean, imagine at the time we're doing this sport and I'm skipping a bit of school and we're having to catch up with work and all these things. My parents are calling in sick for their jobs and everybody's trying to make it happen to do the sport. But the sport wasn't anything at that point. And it was one of those things where it just hadn't really gained that momentum yet. So people around us started to kind of question my parents' intentions at that point. They're like, what's going on here?
Is there a particular moment from those games?
I mean, I think the craziest part is when my mom came up to me, she's like, forever you'll be known as Shaun White, the gold medalist. You know what I mean? I was like, wow, I'm gonna carry that title.
I would see skate magazines and I'd see the guys going down the street and things, and so I knew there was potential. But when I went to the skate park the first time, I literally saw guys flying out of empty swimming pools, and I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to fly like that. I want to learn whatever they're doing right there, that's what I want to do. And I took every step towards doing that.
For the Dave Mears and the Tony Hawks, their whole life, their teachers, their parents, everyone was saying, you'll never make anything of yourself doing this. And they did it because they truly were so passionate about it. They didn't care that they would end up working construction the rest of their life. And I think that was something that's really cool about how action sports has started, but it's also what pushed it into the mainstream.
The X Games, what would you say they've done for action sports as a whole?
X Games have given action sports a platform where you can make a living at it. It's a legitimate sport, not kind of a renegade rebel, derelict kind of sport. I think it's really good, and it's allowing a lot more kids and a lot more of the youth to come up that are passionate about doing this stuff. And I came in right at a great time. When I was 14, they had the first ever world championship of freestyle motocross, and was really able to come along with the sport and progress the sport and put a little bit of my style into the tricks.
Most satisfying moment was making 900 for sure, because it was something that I wanted for so long, and I had tried and failed for a good 5 years before I finally made one. And the fact that I made it in what then was the biggest venue on live TV, it was a big deal, and I feel like it definitely raised the profile of skateboarding and action sports in general.